Necessity, they say, is the mother of invention. We have a lot of necessity in our society today.
Consumer electronics, cars, medical devices, planes, smart appliances. Their common component? Chips.
If software is eating the world, then the chips are the teeth.
The auto sector has been hit hard, with car companies around the world pulling the brakes on production. Although they're not the only ones, makers of gadgets and popular electronics are feeling it too.
And it's getting so bad that General Motors, one of the world's largest automakers, said it could lose up to $2 billion because the semiconductor chip shortage forced it to temporarily shut down some auto manufacturing plants.
Every single electronic product these days has these chips in them that allow them to do what they do.
When people talk about semiconductors now, they're talking about the advanced microchips that power smartphones, computers in cars, and advanced medical equipment, and the analog semiconductor devices that power radios and thermostats. The transistor, a kind of semiconductor, was first successfully demonstrated in 1947 at Bell Labs in New Jersey.
One question which we might ask is, why do people care about integrated circuits?
To understand the importance of the integrated circuit, we need to back up and look at the vacuum tube.
The heart of all these electronic systems has been the vacuum tube.
The breakthrough, the transistor, made it much more sturdy and durable.
These tiny transistors are destined to play a big part in our electronic age.
After the transistor came the integrated circuit, the microprocessor, until the super small, super advanced chips we have today. Now the semiconductor industry is massive. Within the industry, there are semiconductor companies that design the chips, called fabless companies, and there are companies that manufacture them, called foundries. There are also integrated device manufacturers like Intel that both design and manufacture chips. More and more, though, major semiconductor companies are adopting the fabless model and contracting out orders to foundries like Taiwan Semiconductor or Samsung. And that trend toward fabless has helped complicate the chip shortage we've all been hearing about. The US chip industry has captured 47% of the global market share in sales, but only 12% in chip manufacturing, according to the Semiconductor Industry Association. So how did this all start? Well, COVID-19. The coronavirus pandemic forced people to work from home, to go to school from home, to just basically do everything from home. People upgraded their computers, they got smart speakers, tricked out their home theaters, and played a lot of video games.
Many factors contribute to the chip shortage that we see today. The COVID-19 pandemic plays a significant role. The pandemic changed consumer behaviors. We're buying personal computers, new phones, new tablets, Xboxes, so we can work from home and to cope with the lockdowns. And companies are upgrading their digital infrastructure to enable remote working. And all these purchases are driving up the demand for chips.
About 1 trillion chips are made a year. That's about 128 for every person on the planet.
Global semiconductor sales totaled $439 billion in 2020, and that's an increase of 6.5% compared to the 2019 total of $412.3 billion, according to the Semiconductor Industry Association. Global sales for the month of December 2020 were $39.2 billion, an increase of 8.3% compared to the December 2019 total. Another big reason for the shortage? Cars are getting more advanced, and they need more semiconductors. In fact, right now, it's the auto industry that's feeling the squeeze in computer chips most acutely. Cars not only need advanced chips to run increasingly complicated in-vehicle computer systems, they also need older, less advanced semiconductors for things like power steering.
We're in a real difficult situation. Of course, we've heard from the likes of AMD's like Lisa Su and others about the expectation of this lasting about 6 months. So 100 days, if her interpretation is right, is going to put us nearly all the way out, well over halfway into that 6-month period. And I really do wonder, are we able to shorten this delay at all with any action that could be taken right now? I think the Biden administration really needs to focus on how do we not allow this to happen again?
We need to stop playing catch up after the supply chain crisis hit. We need to prevent the supply chain crisis from hitting in the first place. And in some cases, building resilience will mean increasing our production of certain types of elements here at home. and others will mean working more closely with our trusted friends and partners, nations that share our values so that our supply chains can't be used against us as leverage.
After the immediate shortages get resolved, the demand for semiconductors is only supposed to increase. New 5G telecom networks need smartphones with 5G-enabled chips. The so-called Internet of Things will put chips into more and more everyday devices. And the remote work brought on by COVID-19 appears here to stay. China is attempting to become self-sufficient when it comes to semiconductor chips. Right now, it imports most of its semiconductors.
You know, Beijing has always had big ambitions to have its own homegrown industry, but the U.S. restrictions not only on sales to China for chips, but also especially on telecoms giant Huawei. That has really acted as a stimulus for the industry. So Beijing has made chips a top priority for its next 5-year plan, which is going to be unveiled in March. Independence is one of 5, quote, fundamentals of China's economic development, and $1.4 trillion has been earmarked to develop the semiconductor industry by 2025, with the goal to have 70% of chips used in China, made in China.
The US and China both want to be the tech superpower. The US has accused China, among other things, of intellectual property theft and of human rights violations, and has blocked certain Chinese companies from accessing US technology. China is spending billions in order to be able to decrease its dependence on tech imports, thereby also reducing its vulnerability to sanctions put in place in part to punish aggression and deter future belligerents, like, say, towards Taiwan. And that's why chips are the new economic, security, and geopolitical flashpoint.